I'm trying to settle down so I can talk on this thing. I can't stop laughing. Okay. This is going to be a quick podcast because my giggle box has been turned over by something. Have you ever sat back and looked at psycho messages that you've sent people when you've been in a bad mood? I said to Vic, I said, I was wrong, and I'm so sorry that I've been wrong about you. He types back, who is this? Anyway, that's not what I was laughing about. So I found this show. Okay. I signed on to Spreaker a little while ago, and I was noticing, wow, I have 800 and something followers. I just noticed it out of the blue. And I look, and there was a show called Debi Daily Network Deleted. And I went, what the fuck is this? And the comments, Shillbilly says, I have solved the case of the Alan Wayne penis pic. I have proved the pic is of Debbie's penis. I did the math. Rick says, I'm a monster. Boo. Oh, God, I'm laughing my ass off at this. Oh, and then, let's see. It starts off with Alan Wayne. It's a fake Alan Wayne. He says, fake Alan Wayne says, love me some Debbie. Stabby goes, how many times does Debbie say, trust me? Oh, man. Trust me, Debbie says, 4 hours. I'm 4 hours away from Elko. And he says, Apocalypse goes, I know some engine out there. He's a great Slayer fan. And then Stabby goes, Debbie Daly, saving the world, one listener at a time. Apocalypse goes, dude, I have like 50 screenshots now. I really should just unload them a few every night. I may have to ask you with the Tumblr. That was Sunny texting me. It says, Stabby goes, an admonishment from Debbie carries so much weight. Debbie in full teacher marine daughter mode. Wonder why she says everyone is trying to chase her off. She is purely comedy gold. Okay. See, hold on just a second. I have to answer a text message. Hang on. See, sometimes when shit gets like this and it gets like really crazy on Spreaker or whatever, it happened one night on Blog Talk Radio. It was like this mega war going on between me and Bill Wagner, okay? I mean, and it was a mega war, right? Well, a little bit after the show went off the air, I was still recording on right here, my room mic, and I didn't know it. And I answered the phone. It was my girlfriend Annette, and I start trying to tell Annette about what had happened on the show that night, and I couldn't breathe. I literally could not breathe telling her. But when it was going on, I was losing it. I mean, I was like getting really not upset, but I was going, "Oh man, this is really bad," because Bill was on his show screaming out that I was she's a crack whore, and then my best friend Jake, who was my co-host at the time, Jake was doing everything he could to go over to Bill's show and try to calm him down, and every time he would go into Bill's chat room, Bill would ban him again. And then Strope and Fire were on webcam, and they were coming into the show and going, "Hey Debbie, get on webcam." And so I went to their tiny chat. And when I went to their tiny chat, Fire and Stroke both had on masks. What are they called? The troll mask. I forgot the name of it. The Guy Fawkes mask. And And all of a sudden, Strope stands up and just pulls his whole junk out right on the camera. And I just went, oh my God, I was so embarrassed. But they were saying, oh, you look so cute and everything. I was like, oh, thank you. And they're being all sweet. And all of a sudden I went, ah, and I just screamed. And then I go back into the chat room and all of Bill Wagner's friends are in there. And it was just like panda freaking monium, okay? I mean, it was really pandemonium. Well, I actually have it on tape for you guys to listen to. Because, and the only reason why I was just looking to, and I thought, wow, it's actually here. Because I'm working on the Macintosh, on the MacBook Pro, the laptop, downstairs in the den. Because that's where I've got laundry and stuff going. And up here is the studio. And it's always hot upstairs because we have a different unit up here. But anyway, so take a listen to me laughing, trying to talk to Annette. And then I'm going to tell y'all something even funnier than that.
I was just sitting here in my office laughing about this. I'm sorry. I can't breathe. I was sitting here listening to the show. I'm sorry. Hold on, I'm trying. I was sitting here listening to Jake's show, and it just occurred to me the idiocy of all this going on. I mean, you think about it. Lance Vanderstroup. Lance Vanderstroup. And then we've got this one guy called something like, I don't know, something like Made in the USA or some shit like that. He's on time. I'm sorry. I'm trying to kick. I can't. I'm trying. I'm in here by myself, if you can believe that. So here we've got this one guy on Tiny Chat by himself. With a mask on. I mean, you really think about this for a second. Bill Wagner, who's completely gone insane. He's on one channel. Screaming out that I'm a co-caller. I'm sorry. I can't believe I'm fixing that. It just hit me. And we've got Jake. We've got this crazy fire witch who's cursing me. Oh my God. We've got Fly Girl MD80. Who knows what she's calling herself now? Penelope or Fred or I don't know. She's calling into Bill Wagner's show, calling me. I'm on this show. I'm on my show with my biggest nemesis. She's practically co-hosting with me. And I'm sitting here thinking all of a sudden, the whole world's stark raving mad.
So see, that's what happened that night. And it just hit me out of the blue. And I'm here by myself. There's nobody here. I mean, except, Gunner's here and Fufu's not here though. And I was getting ready to go over to Heather's because kind of everything's going on around Heather's house right now because she's having this thing built behind her house. And it's like, one of those major deals where everybody's out there watching and it's all that kind of bullshit. But I was reading these chats. The show is called, hold on. It says, Debi Daily Network deleted. And under info, it says, this is the original of Friday's original broadcast, which took place June 26th to June 27th, 2015, late at night to early morning. Like many broadcasts lately, she puts them on private or deletes them to hide bad behavior. No, I don't. What I do is I delete all the replay that I have, in case you haven't noticed. I took out all that Goofy Bone stuff, is all I took. I think it was Goofy Bone on this one I took out. Let me see. This is y'all's.
I thought of going after was Guy Shea. I went after him about a week.
No, I left all that. I took out the music, and then I took out. Heard engineer does a radio show. Oh my god!
I think I might have heard it, but
I took out, I think, most of the ghost stuff because it was just so mundane and just replay, and it just wastes everybody's time. You know, because when I play replay, it's to fill time sometimes on the show when nobody's saying anything or whatever. But when I do it, when I edit it, and Victor's been on my ass lately, edit. So I edit them, and I don't care. You know, a lot of people I know put out edited products. You know, they do the product live and they go back and they edit it. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is, found the show, and it says she puts them on private or deletes them to hide bad behavior. Over an hour's worth has been deleted of last night's broadcast. And then it says, let anyone she is likely to take it down at any given moment. I don't understand that sentence. It doesn't make any sense to me. But the comments on the pages are from Shillbilly, Rick, News Guy, Alan Wayne, and it's a fake Alan Wayne, Stabby McHugs, and Apocalypse. Okay? And it's so funny to read what they say because then, okay, let's see. Alan Wayne says, Debbie is the bomb. And Stabby goes, I think people that remain have come around, except maybe like Goofy's people. They are from the old school. Debbie is so much better around then not. Around then not. That doesn't make sense. And then Apocalypse goes, Goofy's crew, or some of them, seem naturally partial to Rick's show, which makes sense. And then Alan says, Goofy was never a gangster. And then he goes, she will use it at first chance. I told Debbie first I liked ICP as a test years ago. Oh, bullshit, Stabby. Don't lie. Shut up. You were a clown, and you know it. Be proud of it. There's nothing to be embarrassed of. Stabby says, Debbie, this cracked me up. Wait a minute. No, I don't want to laugh. Hold on. As I said many times before, she would yell at News Guy for not saying her name, and then she would yell at him if he did. Hey, Alan, what's up, says Apocalypse. I'm so misunderstood, says Alan. It's a fake Alan Wayne. Really? This replay needs sock account, says Stabby. Speak for yourself, John, Apocalypse says. Apocalypse can go fuck himself. And Apocalypse goes, well, she banned me for saying something mean to JP, so it makes sense that they are here. What? That's not them. Jonathan, why do you troll so much, says Alan Wayne. Stabby is a shit stir, says Alan Wayne. Let's see. Fine, be that way. Newsman ran full speed into Debbie. It was funny to watch, says Alan Wayne. Okay. And then Stabby goes, I can do that. I can on occasion, I'm sure here too, I won't deny, but many times I don't need to. Whew, it's funny. Now, the only one that doesn't seem to be being funny, you know, I mean, and it's kind of weird, is Guy. Because he says, this stupid cunt needs to get back in her cave before sunlight melts it. And then he says, the nose that knows voice, give me fucking gonna sippa of the ears. And then he goes, hey, Utterbutter, I know you're going to read this. It's time to get rid of your stupid fucking show. For good. You ready, pig? Daddy's coming, and nobody's going to help you. Amen, nigga. And he says, 404 Utterbutter. And then he says, 10 live, the 404 Utterbutter episode. Time to collect a soul. Shillbilly says, I'm a drama queen. And the news guy goes, cunt did the math. Of course, he's serious. Okay, then Rick says, I have the screen cap conversation of Debbie saying that she dealt with Alan Wayne. So what? Rick says, I'm a monster. Shillbilly says, I would bang Debbie. And then Shillbilly says, I get it. I was unstable last year. Alan Wayne. And then the last one says, Alan Wayne needs to go. He has dick pics to send strangers. I'm sorry. I was laughing my ass off. I mean, I couldn't breathe a minute ago. Wait, I'm getting a text from somebody here. Let's see. Who is that from? Oh, man, I was laughing my ass off a minute ago. Let's see. I don't know. It says it's there, but it's not there. Conversations. I have an online texting service that I use, but it says there's no conversations, but somebody just gave me a thing. Let me see. Let me find it. It was 214 ... Okay, let's see if this is it. Okay. Hang on, guys. Send. Okay. That's got to be my son because he answers, Diz is a he, and he always talks funny. I'm going to ask him a security question. Security question. Okay. What did you call your baby blanket? Blanket. And if he answers that, I'll know it's Stephen. Anyway, I'm sorry. So I was reading some text messages on here. What it is if I'm really pissed off, and I can get pissed off. I mean, I'm not this sweet heart that never gets mad. So of course I get mad. I get mad all the time. Just like you guys get mad. Everybody gets mad. And if I get really pissed off at, say, Heather or Stephen or Victor, I'll go to my textnow.com so I can really type fast, because on the freaking iPhone, it's like, tap, misspell, backspace, misspell, what the fuck. It drives me crazy, okay? And on this, I can really fire. While I was looking at some text messages, he said, who is this? Your mom. Okay. Just answer the question. If he can answer the question, I'll know it's Stephen. Okay. And so, what was I saying? I was looking at some of the old ones that I'd sent to Victor, and it was like November of 2014. He would say, I hate your guts. He would say, fuck you. And then about, like, the next one would be 2 weeks later, and it would say, hi, honey. Which credit card do I have, or whatever, and it'd be real sweet. And then the next one would be like, don't you dare ask your parents to do that, or whatever. And it was just funny to watch it go back and forth. And I know you guys know what I'm talking about. I mean, it's like, oh, he didn't answer it right. Nope. He said blanky. Nope. Wrong answer. That's not Stephen. Wouldn't you know that too? This isn't Stephen. This is not my son. NVM. Never mind. Wrong number. I don't know my son's number. What is your number, child? Hold on. I got to find my child's number. Hold on. Contacts. I don't know his freaking number. Edit. What's his goddamn number? How do you do it? What was it Balls said to do? Wait a minute. That is his fucking number. Wait a minute. Hold on. This is not my son. Hold on. I got to say. Let me ask him one question. Okay, Stephen. Hold on. What was the name of your first kitten? Or what are those stupid yippy dogs called? Chihuahua. CHIHUA dog that you hated. If he can answer either one of those, I know it's Stephen. See, what I'm doing is I'm asking him questions before he got out into the world, which was when we lived in Plano. When we lived in Plano, they were preschool. Well, they weren't preschool. I mean, Heather went all the way up to 3rd grade. Stephen went all the way up to 1st. But they weren't really enmeshed. Because, see, we lived in a place called Highlands of McCamey. And the Highlands of McCamey was nothing but like doctors. He said, laughing out loud. It was doctors. That's his number. I know it is. Doctors, lawyers. It was older people. In fact, 3 doors down was a PGA golfer called, what was his name? That PGA golfer that was short with dark hair and kind of had a fat stomach. He had a weird last name. It was like something like, it had an E and an I in it. Damn it. What was his freaking name? Anyway. And then there were no kids there because all of these people that lived there, they were grown and their kids were all grown and gone off to high school and stuff. And we were like this really young couple. We were kind of like in a weird location. But the people that were our age were living over in the areas like where Annette lived, where there was more like a Fox and Jacobs type home, where it was like houses were in like the 230s or the 180s. And our house was really expensive just because we were in an upper income bracket. And the kids had nobody to play with. I mean, and I'm talking nobody. I mean, nobody to play with. Nobody. And so they became best friends. Literally, they were best friends. And they just grew up together in that way. That's why they're so close. And that's why Heather always says, well, then when we moved to Sunnyvale, what I did is I moved to Sunnyvale for two reasons. I moved to Sunnyvale, A, for horses, B, to be, well, actually three reasons. B, to be closer to my brother and his family, and C, to give my children more room to play in a better school district. Because at the time, Plano, Texas, you can look this up on Google, was known for death by heroin. And I know you're going, what? Well, it was like this thing that the kids were all dying of heroin overdoses. And I mean just good kids that came from good families. I'm not talking inner city kids. I'm talking, not that inner city kids aren't good kids. I didn't mean it that way because most of the kids that I know nowadays are inner city. But what I mean by that is kids that were from upper middle class families were all, I mean, actually, you want to know the truth? One of my younger cousins OD'd on heroin, and she went to Plano. And I can't tell you how many there were going. I mean, they were dropping like flies. And it was during we moved in 98, so it was probably like 96, 97, 98. You can Google that. In Plano, Texas, there was a heroin epidemic, and all these kids were dying. They weren't killing themselves, but they were just ODing because they didn't know how much to do. But anyway, so I had this babysitter. The only babysitter that I trusted was the woman. There was this huge fat woman that ran the daycare at our church, okay? She had a daughter that went to Plano High, and that was the only woman that I would trust to watch my kids because she was just an angel. And they called her Miss Pat, and her daughter's name was Miss Stacy. And Miss Stacy and Victor and I were going out all the time. Not all the time, but I was teaching practical parenting, and in practical parenting, you have to have a date night. Well, our date night was Thursday night. And then usually on the weekends, we always got together with either, like Tammany or Rob, my brother and his wife, or somebody like that. We were just a really young couple that were just, we didn't party and drink, but we just, played bunco, or whatever we did. Well, I would use Stacy usually 2 nights a week. And one time Stacy came to me and she sat down and she said, Debbie, I got to talk to you. And I was like, what? And she says, listen to me. She said, you've got to get your kids out of Plano Independent School District. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she goes, this is hitting the junior high level. And I was like, what? And see, Heather was already in 3rd grade, which means 4th, 5th, 6th, and she was in junior high. And I told Victor, I said, David is driving 17 miles over here every day. Stephen, answer me. Hold on just a second. Answer me, please. Steve, he might be listening. My brother was driving 18 miles one way back and forth to my house almost, and his wife and his kids almost every day. And then if we went over there, it was 17 miles one way. I mean, my brother and I were inseparable, literally inseparable from the moment we graduated from high school till the year 2003 because of something with his wife that he married. He got remarried to this woman. He divorced Sandra, my best friend, who died of cancer last year, and he married this other woman. And anyway, she didn't like me, and she put her foot down and said, it's either me or her. And, what's he going to do? Choose me? Of course not. He's going to choose his wife. But I hear all the time from David, Beantown in my chat room, that he still, just adores me and cries, and I still adore him. It's just that we're temporarily apart. But that's not the point. The point I'm trying to make here is, I have no idea what I was trying to make this point. Why was I trying to make this fucking point? Oh. The reason that only Stephen would know the name of that dog and the name of his kitten and the name of his blanket is because There were no other kids around, just he and Heather. But when we went to Plano, if I asked him questions, when we went to Sunnyvale, Stephen became the most popular kid in Sunnyvale. I kid you not, I'm not lying. He was actually the most popular kid. And I've got video. I've got pictures, I've got albums full of birthdays. He was like the leader of the gang. Every day, boys would get off, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade boys would get off at my bus stop to come over. Stephen had a fort up in a tree that Victor had built, and they played Army Men, and it was real serious. And they had a golf cart that they had tricked out in, camouflage and stuff, and they had a real army. And because Stephen had lived his whole life to be like my father, a Marine. He was real close to my father. And it really, really, really affected Stephen bad when my father died. That was the number one person that affected with Stephen, which is why he doesn't really talk about it. But anyway, the bottom line is Heather kind of jetted out into a really tough situation. Heather was thrown into junior high school with nobody she knew. It was like she was the new kid on the block. And this was a school, Sunnyvale was K through 8th. It was a country school, very small, master degree teachers. It was like a private school. It was everybody was in everybody's business. And when Heather and I walked in the first day, they were like, who the hell is that, And she really had a hard time, but she did okay. And there's lots of great memories there. She made cheerleader, dated the popular guy. Everything was okay. But then when it came time to go to high school, I wanted her to go to Poteet. I'm just in here babbling for some reason. I think I should just go on over to Heather's house. But no, anyway, I just got to laughing so hard. And I never do that. When I start laughing really hard by myself, it's like I start feeling weird until I start talking about it. But I mean to tell you, I was laughing my ass. I couldn't breathe when I first came on the line. I couldn't breathe reading some of these chats. Stephen won't answer me. Maybe that is Stephen's number. I'm sitting here looking at it. 7, 2, that's him. You jerk. Anyway. So yeah, that's really all I had to say. But a lot of people say, no, Debbie, don't keep telling funny stories. I don't know. There's funny stories that when we lived in Sunnyvale, like, for example, every time Dave came over, there would be a dead animal. Dave goes. Dave is so goddamn funny. He's my nephew that I raised like my own. He basically lived with me all through high school. He did. Chris, his younger brother, who was he was the star quarterback. He was the star pitcher. He was this. He was the most popular. He was everything in the whole world. He lived there. Well, you can imagine what came with him. The whole football team. And it was just like, oh, Aunt Deb, all this bullshit. Well, Dave came with golfers. And he had these golfers that came over named Ellis and Sheets. And Ellis was real lanky, hey, Deb. And Sheets was this little short, fat guy, kind of like Top Cat. And he would boss them around, And the first person that would drink their beer would become the king. And he would sit there and he'd go, Dave, go roll the windows up on my car. It's fixing to rain. It was just funny stuff. Dave is the guy that's on that's on Facebook that I read the funny posts that he puts on there because they're so worthy of reading. Like, I'll show you his most recent post on Facebook. Why does decaffeinated coffee exist? Dear McKinney, take a chill pill and write it out. I have forgotten and I don't care anymore. Your friend, the public, 2 months from now. My new favorite cop shop is Stillwater PD. Table full of screaming kids versus their radios, and they didn't back down. The louder the kids got, the louder the radios got, and the harder the glares got. That's how to get things done. Hashtag die yuppie scum. Then he says, next time I hear or see Bruce Jenner or Caitlyn, I'm switching back to Republican. And then there's a picture of him laying on his stomach with a toy rifle. It looks like one of those 51 caliber or 50 calibers. and he's looking through the scope, and his little boy, he's got twins, one's a girl, one's a boy, and he's on the same thing, and he says, great Sunday afternoon playing Chris Kyle with my kid. And then Chris Sheets, that I told you about, answers, America. And then David answers, damn right. And then he's only had 3 friends since he's been born, because he's like I'm sorry, you just have to understand Dave. He posts a picture of an old man that has hung himself, and there's a note on his chest. And the old lady says, you misspelled constant criticism. Then there is one where he says, every donut shop in Stillwater, Oklahoma is closed on Sunday. For this reason alone, I am sprinting to the polls to vote for Hillary. Then he says, I just listened to 10 minutes of Hope for the Heart with June Hunt. There are just some people in the world that need to be set on fire. I mean, okay, here's the last one. To the parents that won't do anything about their screaming kids in public, those little grinning nods that you get from everybody are not meant to say, wow, you have a cute kid. He's looking at a sign that's in a graveyard that says, annual meeting of lot owners to be held May 30th. And he says, I'm showing up for this. The curiosity is killing me. And his father posts a picture of Michael Jackson in Thriller. It says, don't forget to do your makeup like this. I posted an answer that says, don't forget, Dave, Poppy used to say, Debbie, do you know what kind of people are buried in that cemetery? And I would always go, what kind? And he would say, dead. Here's the last one. I noticed that we are offering the survival of a Bible in a bus fire as proof if we are going to keep this reasoning consistent. Thanks to Hephaestus for the survival of the frame, Dionysus for the cotton seal covers, and Poseidon for the driver's bottle of water, and for the survival of Lady Antebellum's music. Hail Satan. This may be blasphemy, he says, but there's nothing funny in Young Frankenstein. I tried to get through it, and I just can't. Anyway, so that's what I'm talking about. These kind of people were over at the house just constantly. And they were just always like, just out there just being funny and making it. We laugh a lot in my family. And but Stephen just became really popular. But the funniest thing that I remember, one of the funniest things I remember, we'd gone to a North Mesquite High School football game, of course, to watch Chris play. And they used to call the games on 88.5. And on the way over there, we'd hear play action with Chris Bean. And we always just wonder, what does play action mean? Because Annette and I would ride in like the girls' car with me, Annette, Heather, Danielle, whatever, Kaylee, Bailey. And then all the guys would go up ahead in the Land Cruiser or whatever. And we would turn on 88.5 KEOM and it would go play action Chris Bean. And then they would go hand off to Chris Bean. And then we would just go, what does play action mean by Chris Bean? And then by the time I'd get there, I'd just be furious that Chris had handed off every time he had his ball on, his hands on the ball. Well, we go to the game, and the cheerleaders at the game during halftime passed out these little tiny megaphones, little bitty tiny, that said North Mesquite Stallions on it, right? And we get home that night, and of course, Steven's got his whole posse with him. And his posse was Tyler, Cameron, Cy, the boy that had diabetes. What was his name? I don't remember his name. Anyway, he had about 5 guys that were just constantly around him, and they were just following him around. Steven would go, come on, ladies. Well, I happened, and I was always keeping my eyes on the kids. The whole back of my house was always open. I had solid windows. And it overlooked the pool and the forest. We backed up to 72 acres. And we had lights out there so I could keep my eyes. I mean, I didn't just have 2 kids. I had about 10 at all times. And I was looking out there all the time. Well, I looked out there one time, and Stephen had all the guys kind of standing over by the pool. And he walks up to Cameron, who was kind of a dork, with this little megaphone, and he goes, wrong! And he goes, watch me, faggot! And he hits him on the head, and it's just like in the movie. He was doing a scene from Blazing Saddles. And if you've never seen that scene, there's a scene in Blazing Saddles where the fat guy, not Harvey Korman, but Dom DeLuise. Dom DeLuise goes, wrong, and he yells in this gay guy's ear. I'll see if I can show y'all that scene before I get off the air. And Stephen, I mean, I just saw him do that, and you can imagine how hard I laughed, because Stephen didn't know anybody was watching him. And he just goes right in Cameron's ear, he goes, wrong, and takes the megaphone and goes, watch me, faggots. And for some reason, it just hit me so funny when he did that. But anyway, that's how funny it was. Here we go. I'll see if I can find this, and then I'll let you guys out of here. Here we go. It's called The French Mistake, okay? Here we go. This is what he did.
Throw out your hands, stick out your tush, hands on your hips, give 'em a push. You'll be surprised you're doing the French mistake. Voila!
All right, cut! Wrong! Okay, just watch me. It's so simple, you sissy Marys.
He takes that megaphone and he goes whack on that dancer's head. He goes, wrong. And it just hit me so funny. The other video that I actually shot one time on my cell phone is Stephen he had this golf cart. It was a something and go, the green one, that has the thing on the back, and it's called something and go, plug and go, or go and go, whatever it is. And cost me $4,000 one year. We still have it, actually, but it's out in the storage. Well, Stephen is on the golf cart, and Stephen was shorter than most of the guys at the time because he wasn't a sleeper. He's like me. He stays up real late at night until I convinced him that he's never going to grow unless he sleeps, because kids under the age of 25 don't grow unless they sleep. Anyway, that's another whole show. But he's on the golf cart cruising by the door, and he always had to sit real far up on the edge of the seat to reach the pedals. And next to him would be Cy. And in the back was always Cameron and Tyler. They were always on the back of the golf cart, and they were always turned around facing the front. And for some reason, just the way they were tooming around the back, and we had a huge backyard, tooming around the backyard and here and there and here and there, it just seemed to go with the song by War. I think it's called Low Rider. You know what I'm talking about, that song? So what I did is I grabbed my phone and I videotaped them. And then that night I uploaded the video to my computer and I put it to this music. And it is so freaking funny to watch because it just goes with the music.
All my friends know the low rider. The low rider is a little higher.
And he's just tooming along in the backyard, and it's just, I can't tell you how funny this video is. It's one of those videos, it's on our, what's it called, not VHS, but it's called the High 8 camera or something like that. No, actually it was on my cell phone, so it's on my computer. Not this computer, but it's on another computer. However, and then there's funny stories of Heather and just all kinds of funny things, like when Heather was going to go, I could go on forever with funny stories, but one story, my brother was leaving one night and he drove a Jeep, and constantly David and I would change cars. He had a Jeep, a badass red Jeep, and he also had a Mustang 5.0. And I had a Toyota Avalon and a Ford Expedition. And he would say, hey man, why don't you let me drive the Avalon all week? I was like, okay, fine, I'd say. And he goes, what do you want, the Jeep or the Mustang? I said, give me the 5.0. Well, he jumps in the Jeep, and I'll never forget standing there. I was standing I remember right where I was standing, and everybody was kind of out we had this huge back driveway, and all of a sudden, David starts the Jeep, and he goes, and there was a cat in the engine, and he goes, what the fuck? And he gets out, and it was okay. I mean, it was hurt. We had to take it to the animal hospital, but It was the look on David's face when he went to start that Jeep and it just went thwink and it just locks up. But just funny shit like that. Anyway, I'm sorry. I just had to come on here and talk to you guys. I'm going to go over to Heather's house and I'll see you guys later on. I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to this crazy freaking podcast.